Enoch is a biblical figure introduced in the book of Genesis as the son of Jared and the seventh generation from Adam, placing him directly in the lineage leading to Noah. This lineage situates him among the antediluvian patriarchs, a group of individuals notable for their extraordinary lifespans, often spanning several centuries. Enoch's recorded lifespan, however, is distinct. Genesis 5 states that he lived 365 years, significantly shorter than other patriarchs, yet his life is distinguished by spiritual significance rather than duration. The text describes Enoch as having walked with God, then he was no more, because God took him. Genesis 5:24. The phrase, walked with God, is interpreted as a sign of moral and spiritual righteousness, indicating a continuous, close relationship with the divine. The statement that he was no more has traditionally been understood to mean that Enoch did not experience death in the usual sense, but was taken directly by God, a concept reinforced in the New Testament in Hebrews 11:5. There, Enoch is commended for his faith, and his translation is cited as an example of divine favor and human devotion rewarded. Beyond genealogical mention, Enoch is sometimes associated with Melchizedek, the priest-king figure of Genesis 14, due to similarities in their righteousness and proximity to God. In Jewish and early Christian literature, Enoch is described as a prophet, sage, and teacher who communicates divine knowledge to humanity. Early church fathers, including Justin Martyr, Clement of Alexandria, Tertullian, and Lactantius, referenced Enoch with respect, citing him as an authoritative source of wisdom and linking his writings to theological and eschatological concepts, demonstrating his enduring significance beyond the brief biblical account. What the Book of Enoch is. The Book of Enoch is an ancient Jewish text attributed to Enoch, the seventh-generation patriarch from Adam. It is considered apocryphal, meaning it exists outside the canonical Hebrew Bible and Christian Old Testament, though it was highly regarded in certain Jewish and early Christian communities. The text is a compilation of multiple writings produced over several centuries. Scholars date the earliest portions, particularly the Book of the Watchers, to around 300 BCE, while the latest editions, including parts of the Dream Visions and Epistle, are dated to approximately 100 BCE. The final form, as preserved in Ethiopian manuscripts, reflects a continuous development of religious, moral, and cosmological ideas over roughly 2 centuries. The Book of Enoch was excluded from the Jewish and Christian biblical canons during the first centuries of the Common Era. In Jewish tradition, it was not included in the Hebrew Bible, likely due to its detailed accounts of angels and esoteric knowledge, which conflicted with developing rabbinic theology. In Christianity, the text was read and referenced by some early Christian fathers, including Justin Martyr, Tertullian, and Clement of Alexandria, yet it was eventually removed from most canonical collections. The reasons for exclusion are multifaceted, combining theological, doctrinal, and practical considerations. One factor was the book's controversial content. It provides detailed accounts of fallen angels, the Nephilim, and the transfer of forbidden knowledge to humanity. These subjects challenged conventional understandings of sin, divine authority, and human morality. Additionally, the text contains prophetic visions and messianic references that could be interpreted in ways that diverged from emerging Orthodox Christian doctrine. Its vivid depictions of celestial realms, angelic hierarchies, and divine judgment may have been seen as theologically unsettling and potentially misleading for ordinary believers. Another contributing reason for its exclusion was its complex and sometimes ambiguous structure. The Book of Enoch consists of multiple sections with varying styles, from narrative accounts to symbolic visions and apocalyptic prophecy. Its eclectic composition may have raised questions about authorship and authority, prompting religious leaders to favor more uniform, doctrinally consistent texts. Despite its removal from most canonical collections, the Book of Enoch continued to circulate in certain communities and eventually survived in its entirety within the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, preserving its influence on subsequent religious thought and apocryphal literature. Book of the Watchers. The Book of the Watchers is the earliest and foundational section of the Book of Enoch, traditionally dated to around 300 BCE. It focuses on the fall of the Watchers, a group of angels assigned to observe humanity. These angels, sometimes called sons of God, were commanded to watch over humans but became corrupt by desiring human women. Their transgression involved mating with human women, producing offspring known as the Nephilim, or giants, who were described as extraordinarily tall and destructive. This union of divine and human beings introduced violence, moral corruption, and chaos into the world, which the text presents as a primary reason for the later flood narrative. The Watchers not only transgressed by mating with humans, but also transmitted forbidden knowledge. Leaders like Azazel taught humans metalworking, crafting of weapons, and armor. Others instructed in cosmetics, jewelry, astrology, enchantments, and other practices that the text frames as corrupting influences. The Book of the Watchers portrays these teachings as morally dangerous because they encouraged pride, violence, and the misuse of divine knowledge. Enoch himself serves as an intermediary and witness. God opens Enoch's eyes to visions of heaven, allowing him to observe both the consequences of the Watchers' actions and the celestial order. Enoch records the corruption of humanity, the punishment of the angels, and the eventual judgment decreed by God. The narrative emphasizes that the destruction caused by the Nephilim is both physical, in the form of widespread violence, and spiritual, as the angels' teachings lead humans away from righteousness. Divine intervention is carried out through archangels. Uriel informs Enoch of the coming judgment. Raphael is commanded to imprison Azazel, and Michael binds the other fallen angels. This section establishes central themes of the Book of Enoch: the dangers of disobedience, the consequences of forbidden knowledge, and the justice of God in responding to corruption. It also introduces the Nephilim, whose existence provides a theological explanation for the state of the world prior to the flood, framing the narrative for later prophetic and eschatological sections. Book of Parables. The Book of Parables, also called the Similitudes, is a section of the Book of Enoch that presents visions and teachings focused on eschatology, judgment, and the coming Messiah. Scholars generally date this portion to the late 2nd century BCE, although its precise origin remains debated. Unlike the Book of the Watchers, which is primarily narrative, the parables emphasize moral and prophetic instruction, using symbolic language to convey the ultimate fate of humanity and the divine plan. A central concept introduced in this section is the Son of Man, a messianic figure who is described as righteous, elect, and chosen by God to preside over the final judgment. The text portrays the Son of Man as sitting on a throne of glory, executing divine justice upon the wicked and rewarding the righteous. This title and the associated imagery predates its use in the New Testament and likely influenced early Christian understandings of the Messiah. The parables also expand upon themes of reward and punishment. The righteous are promised protection, light, and eternal peace, while the sinners and corrupt are destined for darkness and destruction. The text emphasizes the inevitability of divine judgment, the separation of good from evil, and the fulfillment of God's plan over time. Additionally, this section illustrates the moral authority of Enoch as a prophet and mediator. He receives visions directly from God, interprets them for humanity, and conveys the eschatological message in terms that are both prescriptive and revelatory. The Book of Parables thus reinforces the ethical and theological framework introduced in the Watchers, linking the corruption of humanity to the ultimate plan of divine justice and the coming of the righteous eschatological figure. The astronomical book, also known as the Book of the Heavenly Luminaries, is a section of the Book of Enoch that focuses on the structure and movement of the cosmos. Scholars date this portion to the 3rd or 2nd century BCE, and it presents detailed observations of the sun, moon, stars, and the cycles of the year. The text is framed as knowledge revealed to Enoch during his heavenly journeys, guided by the angel Uriel, emphasizing the divine order underlying creation. A primary focus of the astronomical book is the solar calendar. The year is described as 364 days, divided into 4 equal seasons of 91 days each. Each season consists of 3 months of 30 days, with 1 additional day added at the end of the 3rd month. This structure ensures exactly 52 weeks in a year, with each season consistently beginning on the 4th day of the week, corresponding to the day of creation when the celestial lights were made, as described in Genesis. The book also outlines the movements of the sun and moon, the cycles of the stars, and the courses of the heavenly bodies. These descriptions are intended to provide a cosmic order for timekeeping, ritual observances, and understanding celestial phenomena. By recording these patterns, the astronomical book emphasizes the precise, orderly nature of creation, reinforcing the idea that God governs both the heavens and the affairs of humanity. It also demonstrates Enoch's role as a mediator of divine knowledge, capable of interpreting the hidden workings of the cosmos for human understanding. The Dream Visions, also called the Book of Dreams, is a section of the Book of Enoch that presents symbolic and allegorical visions of Israel's history and humanity's moral journey. Scholars generally date this portion to the 2nd century BCE. The section differs from the previous narrative and parable sections by using imagery and allegory, often depicting humans as animals and angels as humans, creating a layered and symbolic representation of historical events and spiritual truths. The dream visions cover events from early human history up to what is interpreted as the Maccabean period, roughly 163 to 142 BCE. They provide a moral and prophetic commentary on political and social developments, framing the struggles of Israel within a divine cosmic order. The use of animal symbolism allows the text to convey complex historical and ethical lessons without explicitly naming political figures, while simultaneously highlighting the moral consequences of human actions. These visions also underscore Enoch's role as a mediator and interpreter of divine knowledge. He receives revelations about the fate of nations, the rise and fall of rulers, and the eventual triumph of righteousness. Through the dream visions, the text emphasizes that God is actively overseeing history and that human behavior has both moral and eschatological consequences. This section bridges historical events with the apocalyptic and eschatological themes developed in the Book of Parables and the Epistle, reinforcing the overarching message of divine justice and moral responsibility.
The Epistle of Enoch. The Epistle of Enoch is the final major section of the Book of Enoch, combining moral instruction, prophecy, and eschatological teaching. Scholars date portions of this section to around 170 BCE. It presents a structured message on the 2 paths of human behavior, righteousness and wickedness, emphasizing the consequences of each. The epistle is divided into several subsections, including the apocalypse of the weeks, exhortations to follow divine law, oracles against sinners, and the birth and preparation of Noah. The Apocalypse of the Weeks divides history into 10 periods, or weeks, with 7 relating to past events and 3 to future ones. The text outlines a gradual unfolding of divine judgment, culminating in the final era, when a new heaven will be established and righteousness will prevail. This structure conveys both historical progression and eschatological expectation, showing that God's plan unfolds according to a precise, divinely ordained timeline. The epistle also includes moral exhortations delivered by Enoch to his son Methuselah. It stresses that adherence to righteousness ensures protection, prosperity, and favor, while wickedness leads to punishment and spiritual darkness. Additionally, this section reinforces the connection to Noah and the flood, describing God's warning of impending destruction and the preservation of the righteous. Through these teachings, the epistle emphasizes divine justice, the moral division of humanity, and the necessity of obedience and spiritual vigilance. Forbidden knowledge and theories. The Book of Enoch establishes a direct connection with its teachings and the biblical figure Noah, particularly regarding the flood. According to the text, God, observing the corruption introduced by the fallen angels and the Nephilim, resolves to cleanse the earth. Enoch serves as an intermediary, receiving divine visions that reveal the coming catastrophe and the preservation of the righteous. He conveys instructions to Noah, ensuring that he and his lineage will survive the flood. The text presents Noah as preordained to be the vessel of salvation, embodying righteousness in contrast to the corruption surrounding him. The fallen angels play a critical role in this narrative. Azazel, one of their leaders, is depicted as teaching forbidden knowledge to humanity, including metallurgy, weapon-making, astrology, enchantments, and other forms of esoteric learning. This imparted knowledge, while technically advanced, is framed as morally and spiritually corrupting because it encourages violence, pride, and disobedience. Other angels, such as Semjaza and his followers, are similarly implicated in the introduction of practices that disrupt the divine order. In response, God dispatches archangels. Uriel acts as a messenger, revealing the coming judgment to Enoch and Noah. Michael binds the rebellious angels. Raphael imprisons Azazel. These interventions illustrate the enforcement of divine law and the separation of the righteous from the corrupt. The Book of Enoch also explores the broader concept of forbidden knowledge and its implications for humanity. By depicting the transmission of advanced skills and cosmic understanding from angels to humans, the text highlights the ethical consequences of acquiring knowledge without spiritual readiness. This theme underscores the book's warnings about moral responsibility and the dangers of hubris. Scholars and theorists have proposed various interpretations of these accounts. Some suggest symbolic readings, viewing the Nephilim and angelic teachings as allegories for social and moral corruption. Others have proposed more controversial hypotheses, including the idea that these descriptions may reflect ancient encounters with technologically advanced or extraterrestrial beings. While such interpretations remain speculative, they emphasize the enduring intrigue and complexity of the text. The connection to Noah, the role of angels, and the transmission of forbidden knowledge together form the culmination of the Book of Enoch's narrative. They explain the moral and cosmic rationale for the flood, highlight the consequences of human and angelic transgression, and illustrate the book's broader themes of divine justice, moral accountability, and the oversight of the cosmos.